Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit TRE.radio.
Discuss, challenge, inform, comment, viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe.
Giles Brown.
Live comment and discussion with studio guests. Viewpoint.
It is Tuesday, the 21st of May. Welcome to Viewpoint Talk Radio. It's current affairs program with a panel of invited guests where we discuss the issues of the day with you live and for the next 2 hours. If you want to go and get involved with today's Viewpoint, then these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
And let's start the day as we always do, looking at this morning's papers. Powerful picture of 7-year-old Colin Smith, one of the victims of the infected blood scandal, dominates the front page of The Sun. The Eye reports that successive governments refused to acknowledge the part tainted blood products played in infecting NHS patients and covered up the scandal for more than 40 years. Meanwhile, the Daily Express leads on Rishi Sunak's apology to those affected by the infected blood scandal, labelling it the worst care disaster in NHS history. The Times reports on calls for corporate manslaughter charges to be brought against Whitehall departments over the infected blood scandal. Leading on the infected blood scandal, The Guardian says the inquiry found deaths and infections could have been largely, though not entirely, avoided. Meanwhile, the Daily Mirror calls on the government to make those responsible for the infected blood scandal face justice, calling it a betrayal on a massive scale. The Daily Mail goes on the damning report into the infected blood scandal, which is on the front page, with the paper reporting horrifying failures leading to the death of more than 3,000 people. The Daily Telegraph also has that as a top story. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak calls it a day of shame for the British state. Financial Times splashes on the news that the International Criminal Court's prosecutor has requested arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and senior Hamas leaders. The Metro leads on the report into the infected blood scandal, which found there was a pervasive cover-up to hide the truth. And finally, in the interests of balance, I suppose, we look at the Daily Star, which leads on Courtney Cox's comments that she still senses co-star Matthew Perry around her 7 months after his death. Those front pages again, though, looking at exactly what they're saying. The Sun, inquiry slams cover-up, give them justice. The Eye, day of shame for Britain. Blood cover-up scandal killed thousands. The Daily Express, this is a day of shame for our British state. That's their headline. Meanwhile, the Times, Britain's day of shame over tainted NHS blood. There are quite a few pictures of the Chelsea Flower Show as well, which is making the front pages today as it kicked off yesterday. Meanwhile, The Guardian, day of shame, deadly cover-up of blood scandal finally exposed. The Daily Mirror, make the guilty face justice. Daily Mail leads with day that shames the British state. The Daily Telegraph, the same quote again, day of shame for British state, and they have who have they got on the front cover? They've got Dame Judi Dench at the Chelsea Flower Show. The Financial Times leads with ICC request arrest warrants for Israeli and Hamas leaders. And also looking through the Metro, chilling verdict on new catastrophe. NHS catastrophe is going to be 40 years of bloody cover-up. And finally, as I said before, in the balance of in the interest of balance, Friends, the one where Matt Perry visits Courtney Cox from beyond the grave. Star reveals she feels his ghostly presence, and those for better or worse are your headlines on this Tuesday, the 21st of May.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Viewpoint with Giles Brown.
Always live, always lively. We keep our guests on their toes, but joined by the woke finder general himself, live not from a houseboat somewhere on the Thames, putting the fear of God into people, but where are you, Rex, this morning? Good morning, Rex.
Good morning.
Where are you this morning then, sir?
Good morning, Spain. Good morning, Spain. From Spain, I'm in sunny Menorca.
Minorca or Mallorca?
I'm sorry, Menorca. I'm in Minorca. We don't go to Majorca anymore. We go to Minorca.
You go to Minorca, do you? Fine.
No, I've never. No, I jest. I've been all over Spain. I've been north, south, east, west, all the islands except for Menorca, and I've been here about 10 days. And I have to say, it is absolutely delightful, charming people. Lovely food, unspoilt, and I can highly recommend it.
Did you actually sail the boat down yourself, Rex, this time round?
No, remember, Giles, I live on a lighter. There's no engine. So and it would have to be towed. So, no, I came the normal way, but it's been an absolute pleasure to be on this island.
Well,
I can't recommend it enough.
As one of our regulars and in most respected correspondents, it's good to have you with us. And we're joined by a new visitor to Viewpoint this morning, Richard Carroll. Good morning to you, Richard.
Well, good morning to everyone. Good to be here.
Exactly.
Good morning, Richard.
Good morning.
Just tell us a little bit about yourself. We always find before we get going with this morning's Viewpoint.
Well, I'm sort of one of these sort of Europeans that has a very mixed background. I was actually born in Bilbao, up in the north of Spain. My parents were lucky enough to be able to decide where to live, and good food, but a lot of rain. That's why we live down here in Marbella. Then schooling in the UK, university in London, then off to work. And for the last 20-odd years, I've been based in Dubai, which is rather good. So I've been spending most of my time on a seat on Emirates Airlines, going backwards and forwards. So in a nutshell, that's a little bit of who I am.
In a nutcase is what kind of what we get down here. Isn't that correct, Rex? We're all in a nutcase.
Absolutely. Something in the water.
Yes.
Did you have problems in Dubai? Were you there with the floods?
Well, strangely enough, when we first moved to Dubai, twice a year, there used to be about 5 or 6 days of solid rain. That used to be the norm. Then about 10 years ago, again, the weather patterns changed and we hardly got any rain whatsoever. And then now, suddenly, we got this massive downpour. People say it's a combination of the effects of El Nino. They're also going for cloud seeding. So it could be the cloud seeding that's caused also additional problems to it. But the biggest issue that they really have over there is that drainage is very, very difficult.
Yes, I read that.
Because everything is sand. And so you can deblock the drains, but then within a month, it's all blocked up again. So all the rain that comes is just sort of floods everywhere. It's low-lying ground. The water table is very, very high. So as soon as there's a copious amount of rain, it becomes quite tricky.
Right.
Yes, indeed.
Well, those pictures of those cars being washed down the streets and everything. I mean, it was horrendous. At the airport, the car parks, everything was full of water.
It's quite amusing when you drive a 4x4 there and you pass these Ferraris and McLarens. They're all waterlogged.
They need a snorkel.
And you make sure you drive as quickly as possible past them so they get absolutely covered in water.
So, Rex, have you been able to be keeping up with the news whilst you're over there in Minorca?
Yes, not sadly, not much UK TV. So I tend to watch a bit of Sky and Euronews on my laptop.
Right.
But of course, the big news is the happy loss of the Iranian president.
Right then, yes, this is the death in the helicopter crash, isn't it? What's your take on this one, Rex? What are your feelings about this?
Well, first of all, I have to say that categorically, if Islam is about this type of theocracy government or theocratic government that Iran has, then it doesn't say much for Islam. What I thought about yesterday when reading about this accident was they couldn't wait to get rid of the Shah, who was a supreme leader, and they replaced him with consecutive supreme leaders in the name of Allah. So the poor Iranians, Persians, of course, as they used to be liked to be called, they have suffered horrendously. Whether they suffered more under the Shah than they have done under this theocracy, we'll have to ask the Iranians. But my few Persian friends cannot abide the theocracy. So it's a dichotomy, really, that you've gone from one supreme leader to another. But I've just been reading now on Twitter or wherever it is, or X, that he was not a pleasant character, and he fought his way to get to the top.
Known as the Butcher, wasn't he? Well, he was known as, his nickname was the Butcher.
Hanging everybody. And all these, I just read now, the young people are being tortured if they don't support the hijab and the dress code and everything. And the thing is that they stifle all revolt with unlawful killing, imprisonment, trials without jury, away from the public eye, and we in the West just sit by and let it happen. But then we're not there, are we?
Richard, what's your take on this? And also, there's a particular word there that made your face. An interesting expression, and I think should we drop the P word in this morning then, the Persian word, because you put me right on this one.
Well, no, the area originally was actually Iran, or a version on the word Iran. Persians came actually from the Greeks through Greek mythology. They thought that the Iranians descended from Perseus, and hence the name Persians. So really, they're just going back to the original name. Persian. The only thing I can say about Persian is that if you say someone is Iranian, you have a picture of an Ayatollah with a big beard and a turban and scowls. And if he's Persian, you think of cats and carpets.
Food, in my case, always the food.
And food to a certain extent. But don't forget, I lived in Bilbao, so food is a bit different.
True, yeah.
So I think it's interesting to hear your comments. I've been going backwards and forwards to Iran since 1999. And my perspective is a little bit different, should I say.
Right.
Business is one thing, government is another. And it's very difficult, really, to try and find any form of government that is balanced. A theocracy, in many respects, is a relatively good thing. It can be very bad. It depends on how it's managed. If you look in a lot of the Gulf states, they have benevolent dictatorships. Now, who would say that a benevolent dictatorship is a good thing? But it works over there. It's horses for courses, and yes, it'd be nice to have a more democratic, whatever that is, form of government. But do you go to the extent of, let's say, the beacon of democracy, the United States? Do you want to go to that sort of democracy?
No, the US is a police state.
Well, it's absolute shambles, but they will stop at nothing to tell everyone that this is the true way. So I agree with you to a certain extent. The theocracy, the regime in Iran could be damn sight better, and it is getting better. And I think as you have a generational change, so for example, the children of the many wealthy Iranians who come from the IRGC and following
IRGC, sorry, Revolutionary Guard. Yeah, okay.
They have handle on most of the businesses in Iran. They do extremely well. Now, the next generation, they've grown up with extreme wealth. In Iran, you call them Agazadeh. And these people, they don't want theocracies. They want to drive the Lamborghinis. They want to party. They want to drink champagne, which they do in Iran, by the way. So it's a matter of change. I don't think there's any form of government that really is wonderful when you look at it in detail. And half the problem I find is that there's a lot of Western press that I'm sure the correspondents never stepped into Iran. They might have done the reporting from Beirut or Abu Dhabi, but never been into Iran. So a lot of what's reported is actually not true. If you go to the shopping centers or the restaurants or even in the underground in Iran, and Tehran's got an extremely good underground system, you see women there without the veil, walking quite happily, not being molested by anyone. And that's news 2 weeks ago, because my wife happened to come back from Iran 2 weeks ago and saw all of that. So I think one has to be very, very careful in being judgmental, because a lot of the reporting that you get is biased. And Western press is notoriously biased when it comes to the Middle East. They're quite frankly wrong in many cases. It doesn't matter if it's Iran, it could be Syria, it could be Iraq. They just get the wrong end of the stick quite often. And also the advisors. You've got to also take into account that a lot of people advising these think tanks, these Western think tanks, they are people who have a hidden agenda. If you want to have a look at what a lot of people are advising the United States, the Western powers on Iran, these people are ex-Mujahideen, MEK. And MEK really are exiled people. They were an armed terrorist group back in the 70s. They actually killed US servicemen and people in Iran. They're not nice people, but yet these people are the ones who are advising the United States. People like Bolton or Nikki Haley just suck it up like there's no tomorrow.
But we saw via the power of social media, the protests in Iran. And obviously this is a country that pretty much hasn't changed since the revolution of 79. And you could say that I'm throwing things to you here, Richard. Right. Okay, it's a shame we don't have the webcam. Actually, that'd be quite good fun. But what I'm saying is, you would see the all-pervasive nature of social media and people having information at the end of their phones. And if they see if they see what's happening in the Gulf states, what's happening in the Levant, and they can see, young people seemingly having a better time. I'm not talking about the sons and daughters of the Revolutionary Guard, but for those in other parts of the country. And perhaps this is one of the reasons that we had the protests, because I'm arguing here that a lot of people could say that they are being repressed, and this whole thing with the hair. And this is the reason why we had these protests, and we've had this crackdown because obviously the main aim of being in power is staying in power, and they don't want anything to rock this proverbial boat.
No, absolutely. I think part of the problem, and it happens in every single country where you have some form of dictatorship, that the people in power want to cling on to their power as long as possible.
They're intoxicated, completely intoxicated with their own power.
Exactly. And it's very difficult to relinquish it.
No, absolutely. I must say that it's a privilege to talk to somebody that has actually been to Iran, and therefore I cannot and will not dare argue with you in any way, shape or form, because I've never been, and I therefore don't have the accuracy that you have. However, you made a point which was interesting, in that certain countries of the world, in fact many countries of the world, seem to thrive under dictatorship, because if they were probably left to their own devices, it would be rather messy. And one immediately thinks of China, Russia, and so on. So therefore, you're absolutely right. And as for the Middle East, well, we know, as you say, they are posh dictators.
Well, here's the thought, Rex. I mean, benign dictatorship, which Richard said there. I mean,
benevolent.
Benevolent.
Not benign.
Benevolent dictatorship.
Benevolent dictatorship.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you cross them, will you have a fair trial, or will you end up swinging from the gallows? That's what you've got to ask yourself.
Well,
if you're walking down the streets of London and you get arrested for whatever you're doing, you are going to get a fair trial. You're not going to be casted off to the tower and put on a rack anymore.
You might get a knife attack. If you're walking in central London, you might get a knife attack.
So, you might get a knife attack, but we're talking about the state here, not the individual.
Yeah.
So therefore, do you feel the same when walking down the high street in Dubai or in Tehran or Kazakhstan or any of these other satellite dictatorships.
Yeah.
Does one feel safe? And if one is arrested for anything, would you be given a fair trial?
Yes.
That's what you've got to say.
Okay, in a nutshell, yes. You could a lady, for example, can walk in any part of Dubai at 3 o'clock in the morning, full of her gold jewelry, etc., and no one will touch her. Likewise, if you're in a taxi, and it's happened many times when people leave things in the back of the taxi, could be wads of cash, could be jewelry, could be whatever, it gets returned untouched. It's actually quite incredible. So, as I said, the pluses and minuses. No, and in Iran, for example, since 1999, since I've been going there, not once have I had a single problem. Not once has anyone come up to me and say, "Oh, you English." And it's actually quite funny because the relationship with Iran and England is historical, as you can understand. I mean, the Russians and the British divided Iran into two. The British had dominance in the south, and the Russians had dominance in the north. And some of the sayings in Farsi, in Iranian, are behind every curtain, there's an Englishman. Or the Englishman kills you with cotton wool. So it's actually quite interesting, the relationship that exists.
That's very interesting.
Yes, so carry on about safety in Iran. There, another example, there was a lady who was cycling, I think she was German. She was cycling from north to south Iran, which is quite a feat, and she was stopped outside the holy city of Qom. And Qom is where you get these wonderful carpets, silk on silk, absolutely brilliant masterpieces. But anyway, it's one of the main religious hubs of Iran. So she stopped, she took her veil off because it was rather hot, etc. And then about 10 minutes later, about 3 police cars come, sirens blazing and all that, right in front of her. They jump out and they say to her, "Oh, do you know what you've done? It's haram, it's illegal, it's disrespectful. And by the way, do you like chili kebab? Because my wife would like to invite you for dinner." And it's not the first time that I heard that story or similar stories.
Got a phone call on the line. Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Yeah, hi, it's John in Mihas.
Morning, John.
So I've turned on a bit late, so is that Rex is on the line?
Which Rex and Richard is. Richard Judge for the first time.
John, good morning.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. The point I was going to make is that, I mean, you said about getting a fair trial and whatever, and Richard said that you can walk through, was it Dubai, with all your jewellery and not get robbed. But surely those two are very, very much linked. In England, a person who steals from somebody in the street gets a fair trial and a very lenient sentence. Probably in Dubai, don't they get their hand cut off? And that's probably the difference between the safety in one country and in another. England, as an ex-police officer, in England, there is no effective deterrent whatsoever. And that's why you can't walk around safely.
As always, thank you.
That's a good point. Very good point.
I think we Dubai with hands cut off. I don't think that's actually. I think that's might have been Saudi in the 70s or something like that.
No, they're still doing it, aren't they? They're still doing it.
Not in Dubai. I don't think. But if you know differently, if you're a listener and you're in Dubai, you've just come back from Dubai, let me know. And these are the numbers
to contact TRE. Please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Joined on the line from Minorca by Rex Leyland and in the studio by Richard Carroll. We weren't talking about cutting people's hands off, but
can I just make a comment on a fair trial? The answer is yes, you would get a fair trial. There is Sharia law, but there's also Western judiciary over there as well. It also depends on the type of crime that you commit. And you have to follow whatever the local laws say. But You would in the Emirates, most certainly, in most of the Gulf states, most certainly you would get a fair hearing and a fair trial.
Mark Jones has just come in, by the way, on the WhatsApp saying, just to let you know, you don't get your hand cut off in Dubai or any other else in the UAE. And Mark has just got back from there as well. So therefore, thanks for that, Mark. Rex, are you with us?
Yes, but I mean, there are other Arab countries, of course, outside the UAE, and probably it's in those places where this ancient ritual probably still exists. But Richard, you're obviously highly successful to be travelling to all these places. As we've never met, if you say, I prefer not to say, but may I ask what you do, or what is your profession?
I do nothing. I'm retired.
Oh, you were. So what were you doing then?
I worked for a Norwegian company, and I worked in the oil and gas business on pipelines.
Yep.
So, of course, like the Nord Stream blowing up, that's something that interests me and things like that. Right. So that's what it is. So that's why I was in Dubai.
Thank you, Richard.
Just going back to one of the couple of things here about, we were all saying where you can walk down the streets and it's, you don't get, and you get invited for tea and whatever by friends. The thing is do you balance that though against the freedom of expression? Do you balance that? I mean, you think about what happened with the Baha'i people, for the Baha'i in Iran, the religion, and they have been, you're smiling at me again, which is slightly disconcerting, Richard, when you smile at me because you're about to guess. Because obviously there has been a repression of that particular religious belief in Iran.
Yes, there has, but then you have to look at, again, for example, Armenians. Do you know anything about the Armenians in Iran?
I know very little about the Armenians in Iran.
Well, the Islamic Republic, obviously, alcohol is banned, is haram. Yeah. But if you're Armenian, so you're Christian, you're allowed to make your own wine and drink it. It's quite legal to do that for them. So, and if you're a Christian and you want to go to a church, you can. There are churches around, and you can go to church quite happily. So it's, again, you have to ask the reason why there was a persecution and what sort of degree was there persecution of Baha'is. And there are probably reasons behind it. But you have to understand the full story rather than just the headlines. And unfortunately, nowadays, people concentrate on the headlines, and invariably the headline is very different to the actual body of work that is underneath it. We live now in a generation of TikTok, so anything that comes at TikTok, flashes in your mind, and people say, well, I know all about this. Unfortunately, politics, geopolitics especially, there's a lot of subtlety involved, and you have to understand the nuances before you can really comment. I mean, I don't profess to know a lot about it. I just happen to know because I experienced a lot of it. There are a whole lot of things that we're not privy to. Likewise in the British government as well. A lot of things that happen for a reason. We're not privy to all the reasons why these things happen. We might agree or disagree with the decision.
Getting some WhatsApps coming in on this one. Hi there, Giles. This is from George in Algeria. I lived in Dubai for over 10 years, and they never had hands cut off. They will put them in prison and then deport if foreign, if a big robbery. KSA, Kingdom Saudi Arabia, did some time ago, but moving away from it of late. That's from George in Algeria. Thank you very much for that, George. If you want to get involved with today's show.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
So where do you think we go then, panel? Where do you think Iran will go from now? I mean, having a foreign, and I think that's back to the thing about A, don't fly in helicopters, and B, never put your foreign minister and the leader of the country in the same helicopter. Would you agree on that one, Rex?
I think you're absolutely right. What's fascinating about the three helicopters was that one failed and the other two didn't. And then one thinks of Putin and his, what was the man?
Oh, Wagner, the head of the Wagner organization, yeah.
The Wagner. I mean, the point is that it's a bit whiffy, isn't it, really? I mean, somebody mentioned the fact that Iran is still, of course, under duress with aviation spares, and maybe the helicopter wasn't maintained as it should have been. But it's odd that the helicopter containing the president was the one that crashed.
Yeah, but I mean,
and it's a bit. I just find it a bit hard to believe. Is it too much of a coincidence? That's what you've got to ask.
Well, I mean,
and I think we cannot safely say the Israelis are exonerated. I think we can safely rule out the Israelis, or can we? Or can we? I mean, there's that. But it's a good mystery, isn't it? It's a good mystery.
I do like the way you put "or can we" at the end of things there, Rex. I mean, I think the thing is, if it's foggy, if the weather is bad, maybe try it in a light aircraft, but never in a helicopter, because they tend to have a pretty especially when there's a mountainous region nearby or a hill or anything bigger than a molehill anyway. But yes.
Does anybody know what make of helicopters? Were they Aerospatiale? Were they French or were they?
I don't know. The helicopter was a throwback in the Shah's time.
No.
A couple of things that surprised me. I agree with you. Having Raisi and the foreign minister together makes no sense. But when they left, the weather was okay. All right. So they decided to go, and the weather was all right. The thing also that I would question is that Iran has close relationships with Russia and with China, both of whom manufacture helicopters and very advanced technology helicopters. I don't understand the reason why they would use a very, very old helicopter when they could get alternatives.
In itself, that's a real conundrum in itself, isn't it?
But I would be very, very wary to look further into this until we have the full report from the Iranians, who will be looking at everything and coming up with some form of conclusion. They may not allow us to access the truth. That's one thing. And the second thing is, can we believe them? They were quite quick to rule out the Israelis. As opposed to believing whom?
Exactly. They were quick to rule out the Israelis. Correct me if I'm wrong, they did rule out the Israelis, didn't they?
It is what, sorry?
They
did rule out Mossad, but very quickly, yeah. It's a USA Bellhawk helicopter, by the way. One of my correspondents is telling me. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I think we have to give them time. There's no reason for them to keep secret as to what they believe caused the crash. It could be just pilot error. Just as John Mayer said about these people suffering from the tainted blood.
Yeah,
bad luck.
Yeah.
Which is a criminal thing to say.
Helicopters do, without trying to sound facile, helicopters do fall out of the sky, and if they go wrong, they go catastrophically wrong.
Which is a bit surprising, but I think what I think is a little bit more interesting than who's going to succeed Raisi is the foreign minister. Now, the foreign minister, his English wasn't all that brilliant, and people used to mock his English, but he spoke fluent Arab. And he continued the progress with Saudi Arabia, the discussions with Saudi Arabia. He started getting Saudi Arabia and Iran very close to each other. Also, if you have a look at the period with Raisi and the foreign minister, the links with Russia, the links with China, they've joined the BRICS. They joined this thing called the Shanghai Cooperation.
The BRICS being Brazil,
Russia, India,
China.
South Africa.
Right.
So they joined that. They've also joined the Shanghai Cooperation, which is, again, Asiatic countries getting together. The relationships that they've had in the Stan regions has also improved a lot. So even under Raisi, whatever his past might have been, and with his foreign minister, they have made quite a lot of progress. The thing that is interesting to see is how the dynamic is now shifting eastward compared to what it used to be, let's say, like 20 years ago. The power that was wielded by United States and, shall we say, Western powers, that's starting to erode. And India, for example, has signed a huge deal with Iran for oil.
This is the crux, isn't it? This allowing the access to the oil fields is always going to be important. That's why China and Russia, for example, and with dismantling of the former borders of the Cold War, then the US hasn't got that large enemy that we were fighting against for 40, 50 years.
Well, quite frankly, I mean, if you look past in history, with the British and the French in the Middle East and then the Americans in the Middle East, everything's been really screwed up. I mean, we really screwed up the country. Maybe did it on purpose because chaos works in their favor. Who knows? But really, the legacy that's been left by Western powers is terrible. So it's no wonder they start looking in other directions. Having said that, if you go to Iran, again, another weird thing about Iran, if you go to Iran, they actually love things American and things British. You go walking, there's some big mountains behind Tehran, the snow-capped and beautiful. And we were going up there one Christmas. And there was a whole queue of people climbing up, women with their mantos and everything like that. And when they find out that you're English, they all want to chat with you about Shakespeare and Chaucer and all that. And a lot of them have BBC accents. So you sort of say to them, well, have you been to the UK? No. But they watch BBC. They all have satellites. They all have VPNs. So they circumvent that.
Yeah, but that brings us to that you've just hit a raw nerve there. That brings us to the BBC Persian service, where they're trying to assassinate the journalists working for the BBC in London. You remember all that last year?
Well, I mean...
And MI5 uncovered all these plots, and the tentacles of the Revolutionary Guard were operating under the guise of thugs in London trying to get rid of the Persian reporters.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the Iranian government is in any way sense,
holier than thou.
Yeah, holier than thou. I mean, these things happen.
Yeah.
But also you have to look into, for example, the scientists in Iran who were assassinated. They were nuclear scientists, and the whole of them were assassinated in cold blood in Iran by US-Israeli intelligence. You have Soleimani, the general, who actually, and this is the thing that I don't know whether it's done by it's a calculating thing, but someone like Soleimani, he was very powerful within Iran and the region, and he actually was quite a mild guy, and was basically one of the guys who could be chosen as the future prime minister of Iran. And that would open borders. Iran, if you look at the whole thing behind Iran with the sanctions never work. I mean, Britain was under sanctions by Napoleon, and the United States joined in the sanctions against Britain back in in the 1800s, sort of 1790s to after
1815,
after Waterloo. Yeah, we were all under sanction, and we never made more money in our life than under when we were sanctions. In Iran as well, they've been having 40 years of sanctions, and yet they're still going strong. Yes, it's not as good as it could be. The inflation is quite high. It was very high. Things could be damn sight better, but they get on with it. If you really want to change things in Iran to a certain extent, I think Western powers should reduce the sanctions, because 85 million Iranians, they all have small, medium-sized businesses. They all generate their own income. As soon as you start dropping sanctions, you start getting other companies coming in, be it from China, Korea, from the West, or whatever. And you start having a change in the commercial culture of the country. And Iran is a country of bazaris, of commerce. One of the big differences, if you look at the clerics of a country like Iran, a lot of these clerics, they're businessmen. Whereas you go to a country like Saudi Arabia, whatever, they are religious. So again, there's a nuanced difference between the two. So I think if you start reducing sanctions, that is probably the quicker way to getting the change that most people would like to see in that country.
952-78-4000 is the phone number. Rex?
No, so obviously you think it highly unlikely, given your experience, that there will be any radical change in the coming weeks, months, that things will probably just drift on as they have been, with the same regime and the same culture.
Well, the policy comes from Khomeini, right at the top. So that policy doesn't change. Like every country, they have succession plans. So trying to find a replacement for Raisi might be a little more difficult. They're going to have elections in 50 days' time.
Was the Shah as autocratic, strict as the Khomeini? Do you think that the Iranians went from the fat into the fire, or do you think it was the other way around?
Well, I think they were a little bit... I thought, well, under the Shah regime, it was not really a benevolent dictatorship. It was quite an autocratic regime with its plus and its minus.
I remember his secret service were lethal,
Absolutely.
weren't they? They always had a very bad reputation.
The Savak, yeah. And it sends chills to people in Iran even today. When Khomeini came along, and please, I'm no expert.
Right.
This is my opinion, and
well, it's Viewpoint. The reason we call it Viewpoint is it does what it says on the can, doesn't it, Rex?
Yeah, I think when
your view.
Khomeini came along, the country was ready for some form of change, and a lot of people supported Ayatollah Khomeini. The left-wing people, there was a lot of communists, pro-communists and things like that. They all supported Khomeini coming in. What they didn't expect was what came after. That Khomeini started to lay down the law, imprison people, execute people.
Well, the taking of the American hostages must have been a.
It's a bit of a side thing.
A side.
It's a big side thing, but it's a side thing for the time being.
It turns the whole sort of. It shocks the American public for a start, and it pretty much winds up Carter's presidency.
Well, yes, but if I can just carry on with
please.
So the people who supported Ayatollah Khomeini didn't really expect to see such a violent reaction and a clear up. I mean, he actually executed people who were his supporters as well. He got rid of the competition, basically, in certain terms. So, yes, I think Rex is to say they went in from one to the other. To a certain extent, they did. Unfortunately so. They thought it was going to be a great time for change, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
With the American hostages, I mean, a lot of the people who supported the Ayatollah Khomeini were all students, etc., radical students. They were, as I said, inculcated with the Marxist ideals, etc., and they just went with the flow. And don't forget, before all of this, Iran had democratic elections, they had parliament, etc. Back in 1953, a guy called Mossadegh, he was elected. And the Americans, to go with the British asked the Americans, because by the time the British had no money, and the British and Americans decided for a regime change. So they got rid of a democratically elected leader, and it was Kermit Roosevelt, of the Roosevelt American presidency name.
Yeah.
He was the guy behind it, together with the British, to get regime change. So the relationship between Iran, UK, US is, shall we say, sometimes it's very close, sometimes it's very distant. But you have to understand a little bit of the history behind it. Why did they go for the American embassy? Because of interference, because of the support of the Shah, because what happened with Mossadegh, the whole lot of things that have to be linked up together to understand the reasons why this happened. And also, the effect. It created a huge effect. And maybe this is what they wanted as well.
But can you argue therefore that with the '79 revolution, perhaps some of those younger people who see Khomeini coming over from Paris, he's been exiled, he's this mythical figure, he comes in and think, okay, he's going to be the catalyst for change, and then perhaps after they've had a crack at being in power, then we can take over and make a modern Iran, or an Iran in our image. And of course, that doesn't happen because the clerics absolutely put their mark on the thing, and of course they have huge support from the people in the more rural areas.
Well, Iran was very modern at that time under the Shah. Afghanistan, if you look at photographs of Afghanistan, Kabul in 1960s, girls going around in miniskirts.
My mother used to fly out on Britannia Airways to Iran, and she said it was like Paris. There you go, Tehran in the 60s, so therefore.
Yeah. So I think, history took a turn, and Iranians have, to a certain extent, well, some Iranians have suffered, a lot of Iranians have profited from it. But this is normal in geopolitics. Countries go through these turbulent times. If you look at Spain, we live in Spain, we're talking in Spain. If you look under the Franco time, and the people thought when Franco came along, it was a good thing, getting rid of the Republic because it was ineffective. The Civil War was messy, bloody terrible. But Franco got in Juan Carlos in 1977 when he passed away. There were some coups, etc. It's a messy. Politics and leadership is a messy business.
Going to take a quick break before we go to the news, and we're into the last 9 minutes or so of this morning's first half of this morning's Viewpoint.
Viewpoint with
Giles Brown.
Always live, always lively. This morning's Viewpoint being no exception to the rule. Joined by Richard Cowell in the studio and Rex Leyland in Mahon, I believe it is. With a lot of tweeting in the background there, I hear. Rex, I mean, are you actually in the bird cage, or what's going on?
No, I'm in a hotel actually in the middle of the island, miles from anywhere, in the countryside, having been by the seaside for the last few days. So we're only concentrating on one half of the island this trip, which is the Mahon side, and then we're going to come back again soon and do the other end, because there's a lot to see and there's a lot of history. Having been to a couple of museums and so on in Mahon, I had no idea how deep the history of Menorca is and how valuable it was in years gone by, and the ports and the British and the Americans and the French, and how it's like a tennis ball's been hit backwards and forwards in ownership, and it's just a fascinating history. And we're going back to Mahon tomorrow, where we will finish the museum that we started and try and get a bit more information on the incredible, rich history of this island. I just had no idea.
Well, I just learned something. I just learned something new about Mahon, which I didn't from before, which Richard just told me about, or is it from the when the French took it back from the British, they invented.
Well, Mahon, mayonnaise.
No. I'm going to put you right on this one.
All right,
there are two. There are the original story that I heard was that the King of Spain had arrived on the island, and he said to his chef, "Can you make me a sauce to go with everything?" And the chef came up with this emulsion of egg yolks and olive oil. Then I read in one of the museums that it was an American admiral, or even an English admiral, that asked the chef to come up with a sauce. So I want to find out, because I love the history of food, but we are absolutely, there's no doubt at all that mayonnaise or mahonnaise is from Mahon. That is without a doubt. And I haven't yet sat down with a bowl of mayonnaise made in Mahon. So I'm going to try and do that before I depart the island.
Right, Rex. Well, Richard's going to come back on this one. Hang on a second.
Just one thing. Well, on the subject of food history, and in Iran and Spain, ensalada rusa, Russian salad.
Can we not call it? You know, they've changed the name, haven't they?
Well, it's a very popular dish actually in Iran, and they call it salad Olivier, because the guy, and it's exactly the same, except tuna, they replace it with chicken normally. But it's because they call it Olivier because the chef was a Belgian guy working in St. Petersburg, I believe, and he created this Russian salad.
So how does it end up in Spain then?
I have absolutely no idea. Exactly. But that's the story behind why in Iran it's called Olivier salad and here it's salad rusa.
To showing my age, and this is to admit this, you might be quite disgusted. I remember being at school, and I remember we used to get tins of Heinz Russian salad. Can you believe that?
Tins of it.
And it came in tins, vegetable Russian salad. And I always liked it. And I must admit, I've been told also to go to this one restaurant in Mahon where they reckon they serve the best Russian salad in the world. So I'm going to try and do that before I leave as well. But no, history of food is fascinating. It's a tapas bar. And my wife's just saying, but yes, Russian salad.
Indeed, got a message in.
Why is it called Russian salad?
Exactly.
I mean, Caesar salad. Remember, that was made by a chef on the border of Mexico and America in the 1930s, when the Americans could pass into Mexico without passports, and they wouldn't eat the Mexican food. So this guy came up with this salad. He was called Caesar, and he put together this salad again using an emulsion of egg yolks and olive oil as the dressing, but not mayonnaise. It was much thinner. And that's the history of the Caesar salad. And people, don't realize that food attracts enormous discussion and history.
It does indeed. Now, just to know that Paul's come in saying, nice to see that Rex is enjoying his Irish passport.
I knew that somebody would have a pop at me. And I am travelling on my Irish passport, so I don't have to queue up.
Yes, yes, indeed.
There are advantages. Okay. But anyway, there you go. Maybe one day we'll come and settle in Mahon.
Well, exactly, and put the world to right on what's happening with the salads and whatever else, or indeed the mayonnaise.
Exactly.
Right,
exactly.
Then coming up to the end of the first half of this morning's Viewpoint. In the second half, we'll be looking at a variety of other news stories coming. We have, of course, the infected blood scandal. We're also looking at yesterday's motion by the ICC as well. They seem to be, as I said, going over the arrest. Will they be looking for arrest warrants for Netanyahu? Will they be going over after Hamas? There's a lot of fallout with that as well. Plus, whatever else is crossing your viewpoint, if there's anything that you want to get in particular on today's show, please feel free to get in touch with us on the following numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Right, so going to the national, international news and then back for more Viewpoint here on Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain. Next it's London for the international news and then Costa Blanca for the national news. Back after this.
Talk Radio Europe.
Your voice in Spain. Discuss, challenge, inform, comment, Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe.
Giles Brown.
Live comment and discussion with studio guests. Viewpoint.
Welcome back to the second half of Viewpoint, live from the studios of TRE Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain. Good to have you with us. If you want to get involved with the show this morning, then these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Just to give you a rundown on what's happening today on Talk Radio Europe. Following me on this Tuesday the 21st, as always, will be Stephen Ritson. Stephen Ritson will be live with Europe Today from 12 until 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock, Selena comes and joins us with a lifestyle show. She'll be speaking with Andrew Pearce, talking about he's the GB News presenter, of course, and also a journalist. He'll be talking about solving the mystery of his birth mother, and Dr. Elisa Song, Healthy Kids, Happy Kids, an integrative pediatrician's guide to whole child resilience. That's on Selena's show. Hannah Murray joins us for TRE in the afternoon. She'll be speaking with, first of all, she'll have the Spanish news roundup, then chatting with Graham Donald. He'll be chatting about the realities of the Wild West. And it's 5:10, Dr. Tom Morehouse, Ghosts in the Hedgerow, who or what is responsible for our favourite mammals' decline. I presume we're talking about hedgehogs there. I thought we might be talking hedgehogs. Meanwhile, at 5:25, Caroline Magenis joins us. Harpy, a manifesto for child-free women. That's coming up on Hannah's show. Then Howard Brereton joins us or Spain today between 6 and 7 before a repeat of the show from 7 to 9. That's what's happening today on TRE Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
952 78 4000 is the phone number. Just going to take a quick break while we bring Rex back onto the show.
TRE.
Do you remember the good old days?
Oh, well, in spam meant spam?
Yes, and an application was for employment.
Yes, and the web was a spider's home?
Yes, and memory was something you lost with age.
No, I don't remember that. Linea Directa offers car, bike and home insurance with 24/7 assistance.
Maybe that's why 9 out of 10 customers recommend us.
Call Linea Directa today on 919-181-130. That's 919-181-130. And ask about our great value insurance policies. Terms and conditions apply.
There's a pawn shop on the corner
in downtown Fuengirola. Hi, this is Anthony from Anthony's Jewelers and Diamonds. We are loose in Banús. Come and see us. We are now open in Banús as well as Fuengirola. So, there's no need to travel so far for the best prices, whether you're buying or selling or just want a loan. Anthony's Pawnbrokers and Jewelers. We're at the back of Court Inglés, next to the Thai restaurant Naga. Anthony's. Call us on... Well, what is the new phone number, Thomas?
Hi guys, Thomas here from Anthony's. The phone number is 622-907-000. That's 622-907-000. Looking forward to seeing you all for your best prices on all your jewellery requirements in Anthony's Banús.
Talk Radio Europe.
Viewpoint is brought to you by the Diputación de Málaga. Level up and register on your local town census today.
Viewpoint with
Giles Brown.
Always live, always lively, joined in the studio by Richard Cole, and live on the line from Minorca, home of mayonnaise, is Rex Leyland. Rex, you have something you wish to impart to the nation?
Well, I forgot to mention, actually, that this charming hotel, the manager is, don't laugh, he's from San Pedro. He's got a house in the square near the church, and he spends... his time working here as manager of this hotel, and the head chef has returned from having spent 22 years in Hazelmere, where he has a house, to do the season here in Minorca. So it's a small world.
The world's a handkerchief, as they say. So
with the manager, we hit it off immediately with the old San Pedro stories.
Well, you see. Yes. Yep. And to quote Eagles, you can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. We're just watching at the moment some quite incredible scenes of the funeral proceedings. I presume that's his funeral cortege being taken through what looks like a large articulated truck for the funeral proceedings beginning in Iran for President Raisi. Now, I've got a question for you here, Rex. So listen in. Dear on-air team, I'm a friend of Rex Leyland's from the UK, and I am listening to the discussion. Right? Are you bracing yourselves here, Rex?
I'm now, actually, I don't know whether to shake or to hold onto something.
Right, both, I think. Given Rex's... Actually, let me rephrase that. Given Rex's mention of mayonnaise, I wonder what his view is on adding it to pizza. I've heard that it's a very Scottish thing to do. I'd also like to know if he would have some mayonnaise in a fish finger sandwich, or whether he'd opt for tartar sauce or tomato ketchup instead. I shall be listening attentively to see if Mr. Leyland will be able to share his thoughts on these mayonnaise matters. That is from Matthew Steeples, editor-in-chief of the Steeples Times.
Oh my Lord, yes. Yes, I just saw a tweet, and I couldn't understand why he's tweeting. I thought it was an old one from a couple of years ago, and of course it's actually this morning. No, Matthew is an interesting character, and he has various obsessions. But in answer to his question, with a fish finger, I would only ever use tartar sauce. Tartar sauce is best when it's homemade, and with the gherkins being chunky. or the pickled cucumbers being chunky and the capers being chunky. I hate tartar sauce when it's all sort of wishy-washy or mushy, like nearly looking like mayonnaise.
Right.
And I can't remember the other thing. What was the other thing he said?
Just to re-quote then, I'd like to know if, adding it to pizza, I mean...
No, never. Horrendous.
Shall I say, you know what's coming next, don't you, Rex? Pineapple?
No thanks.
Okay,
no,
fair
no,
enough.
no,
right.
No. Pizzas...
Never mayonnaise with pizza then. That's a Scottish thing to do.
Never mayonnaise with pizza. Chili oil, some chili sauce maybe.
Yeah.
Anchovies, but never mayonnaise. An absolute adulteration.
And just quickly, and I'm getting off on a quick diversion here, but Rex, I don't, because we are both ex-Chelsea boys or whatever, the whole thing. But talking pizza, I don't know if you heard the news, sad news that Pucci passed away a couple of weeks ago.
Who?
Pucci from Pucci's Pizza on the King's Road, next to Henry J. Bean's.
Oh, my Lord!
Yes, indeed.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Anyway, so there you go. So
he was. We used to go there a lot.
Well, everybody used to
in
go
the good
there.
old days.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That's sad news.
Very dead indeed.
Sad.
Right, Richard's looking asking at me because he's wondering what on earth he's walked into here on View. So just quickly before we get stuck into some of the other questions, but the mayonnaise and you've opened up a can of worms or a can of Russian salad.
It's like when we discussed the physalis.
Yeah. I lived in Italy for 3.5 years in Ferrara, which is a beautiful medieval town. And it's known for its food. It's just north of Bologna, which is called La Grassa, because it's really the center of Italian food, arguably. And no,
exactly. There's people throwing. Oh, hello. It's okay. That happens.
My favorite actually is a capricciosa, the one with the fried egg in the middle.
Oh, yes.
Capricciosa, my favourite.
That I do. I'm quite partial to.
Egg.
Absolutely. That I'm quite partial to.
And we know where pizzas originated in Naples.
Yes,
of course.
Yes, indeed.
Adopted by the Americans and sent back to Europe. Repackaged and sent back.
Yeah, it's a weird one with the packaging, isn't it? You have a square package for a round pizza cut in triangles.
Another thing we've discovered recently. Pizzas don't travel. You know when you do a takeaway pizza and it comes in the box?
Yes.
It's just not the same as eating the pizza when it's served to you. They think that pizza travels. It doesn't travel well at all. And really, you should put it back in a warm oven before attempting, if you have a delivery of a pizza.
Yeah, unfortunately, I tend to eat it in the car seat as we're going. Shall we move on from all manners gastronomic?
Onwards. Realistic.
Exactly. Time is we're sort of because we're 17 minutes into the second half of the show, and we've not talked on some other subjects. Let's look at last night's ruling, or the shock, quite coming out of left field. We thought that we were bracing ourselves for the invasion of southern Gaza by the Israeli forces, and the International Criminal Court brought out a ruling, which I listened to the news agent's podcast, and you could hear the sound of shock on John Sopel and Emily Mathis's voices as they were saying they couldn't quite believe that the International Criminal Court would come out with this ruling. It's been described by some as wickedly perverse, and it should. There's a comment piece today in the yesterday's Times by Melanie Phillips saying that it might actually destroy the court's reputation. This is the decision by the International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan to request the arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu, its Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant, plus as well as arrest warrants for the head of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, and also Mohammed Deif, Commander-in-Chief of Hamas's military wing, and Ismail Haniyeh, head of Hamas's political bureau. Rex.
At least it went 50-50. I mean,
right.
This court, I'd love to know all the judges and all their nationalities. I know there's about a dozen of them, I think, is there? But at least it didn't go one way or the other. It was like 50-50, which, as you say, probably makes a bit of a mockery.
Well, Hamas said it was like, Hamas claimed that they were being. The fact that they were being brought into this in the same breath as Israel meant that they were saying that it's like the victim and their attacker, which, spoiler alert, was perhaps asking, it made me pause. So,
But you know, the ironical thing, Giles and Richard, is that, of course, this was brought about by South Africa. Now, we know about South Africa, don't we? Pot, black. I'm not allowed to say that, but I am the woke finder general.
You are the woke finder general.
But it's pot and black. I mean, South Africa is... Why did they put their noses into something that is none of their business? And what are they trying to do? Deflect from their own problems in South Africa?
Well, you can argue that in an international community, it's everybody's business, Rex, couldn't you?
Well, why South Africa? What have they got to... What's their game? What's their bag? What are they moaning about?
Well, I think
they
one of the
look
things...
after their own people in their own country instead of pointing fingers at everybody else, in my opinion.
Well, it could be that some people have been calling all this thing going on in Palestine as apartheid. And of course, apartheid was the big South African issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it could be derived from there. But really, it doesn't... Well, not... I mean, you're right. I mean, Jacob Zuma and his company and all that. I mean, there are elections, I think, coming up in South Africa now.
He's not allowed to stand.
His party is, he's not allowed to stand for corruption and everything like that. Yes, you're absolutely right. It makes a whole mockery about it. However, what is interesting, what I find interesting, is that irrespective of who they're trying to call, neither the United States nor Israel recognize are members of the ICC.
Sure.
Interesting.
Which is again part of the American exceptionalism. As long as you do what we say, but we can do whatever we would like.
The interesting thing is, of course, so if Netanyahu travelled out of Israel at the moment,
should be arrested
in the same way that Putin is.
Yeah, but remember, Netanyahu, when the minute he steps down from government, he's going to the nick.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
And this may be part of the problem that we have at the moment.
Well, the Khan, who is the obviously the International Criminal Court prosecutor, says accusing the Israeli Netanyahu of starving Gaza's civilians, willfully killing them, internationally attacking those queuing for food, and obstructing delivery of humanitarian aid. He says Israel has intentionally and systematically deprived Gaza civilians of objects indispensable to human survival through the imposition of a total siege over Gaza that involved completely closing the 3 border crossing points. And that has obviously riled Netanyahu, to put it mildly. It's here we go. Here's the thing, panel. Do we think that this is going to... the timing of this is not of the ICC's decision, isn't it exactly the greatest? Because Netanyahu was finding himself isolated. Biden was making some noises about pull back here, stop this, because the whole of and there's a huge outpouring, obviously, of support for the Israeli people after the atrocious attacks on the 7th, but that has been in certain corners slowly but imperceptibly moving because we're seeing the pro Palestinian the ordinary people of Palestine. We're seeing marches, we're seeing campuses, etc., and that was perhaps changing. Netanyahu was finding himself standing alone, and he was like, "Okay, we'll do it on my own." And now maybe he was going to be swayed, but now absolutely no chance of that, because this sort of thing coming out of the ICC, one might argue, will absolutely convince Israel that it does stand alone and put up 2 fingers, or any number of fingers to world opinion. I'm going live to the lines where I know that be told exactly what's going on. Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where you're calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
This is Gil from Calpe.
Good morning to you, Gil.
Point number 1. South Africa brought this case to the International Court of Justice, and what we heard yesterday was from the International Criminal Court. They're 2 different courts.
Right.
They're not the same, okay? Somebody said something that applied as if they're the same, okay? So I just want to get that point clear. Second thing is, yes, South Africa brought it now. In the Palestinian territories, there's much more electricity than there is in South Africa. I mean, South Africa is a failed state. And that's what they're trying to play here, to divert the attention from the problems that they have. Yeah, deflect, yeah. It's appalling. I mean, you did mention Melanie Phillips, and actually I read her blog this morning. And she gave all the information about the fact that since the beginning of this war, there was something like 18,000 trucks got into Gaza, and they distributed something like 400,000 tons of food. I mean, so where's genocide? Where's extermination? I mean, according to the Hamas authorities, which we should take with a pinch of salt, but roughly there have been 35,000 people killed. I mean, that includes combatants. Probably half of them are combatants. I mean, that's 1.5% of the population of Gaza. So, I mean, what kind of genocide is it? I mean, it's not a very successful genocide. If you're trying, usually with genocide, you want to kill the whole people. You don't want to kill just 1.5% of the population after 7 months of an effort. Yeah, so it doesn't make sense.
It's a good point. Can I just say, this figure of 35,000, and that anybody can correct me, obviously, it's been 35,000 now for the last 3 to 4 months.
Yes.
Who's doing the counting? Who's doing the counting?
Yes.
Hamas are doing the counting.
That's right. Yeah, actually, nobody knows the numbers, okay? And I think they should probably be even much higher, you know, I mean, with all the bombing that's been going on, with all the people trapped, and with the scenes that we see where there is, you know, food, not enough food is getting in, I'm sure the number of people who are dead is much higher. But if you're doing genocide and you want to actually kill the civilian population, then they're not doing a good job at all.
Precisely. A friend of mine, I think I mentioned this, Giles, on a previous show. He is professor of aviation security, et cetera, and he went to Israel himself just to find out exactly what was going on, rather than reading reports and everything else. And his summary was poignant and brief, saying that basically Netanyahu's strategy was completely wrong. You know, if Netanyahu's strategy had been correct, with all the hostages would have been returned, but they haven't. So they haven't achieved on that point. Secondly, Netanyahu is very, very unpopular with the majority of Israelis. And remember, it's a coalition, so it's not that everybody voted for him. And basically, sadly, I think that things have gone against Israel when they could have actually, you know, made it the other way around.
Well, what could he have done? I mean, you said that this friend of yours said that the policy of Netanyahu was wrong. Well, what would he suggest?
He actually went to the kibbutz where the massacre took place.
Yeah.
And all the Israelis want are the hostages back. And I think that Netanyahu should have concentrated on doing that first and retribution second.
Well, he has. I mean, he's got some of the hostages back. I mean, 100 and something. Yeah. And on the other ones, they tried to arrange a ceasefire, and they couldn't. I mean, it's not as if he didn't try. I mean, what should he have tried that he hasn't tried?
Got some more calls coming in. I can only open one phone line because we've got Rex on the other line. So if it's okay, I'll take that phone call, Gil, and we can call back a little bit later, okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much indeed. Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please? What's your viewpoint, please?
Hello, Felix Quigley here.
Oh, hello, Felix.
Hello there. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Just to put this in context, I just dropped in on you, and I heard the topic is the ICC indictment of Netanyahu.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Just clear up one thing. Rex, who's usually unsympathetic to, he said that Netanyahu would be thrown in neck as soon as this is over. Such a wrong thing to say, Rex. I've studied this situation of these cases against Netanyahu in Israel, and it's nothing like that at all. Not remotely like that, but
I've lost you there. Sorry, Felix, you'll have to call back there. Sorry, I've lost it. Yes, Richard. Sorry, Rex. Hang on, just let me check Rex is still there because something. Are you still there, Rex? Sorry, we just had a bit of.
I'm still here. I lost you for a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, Felix. If you're listening, can you please call back in again because we lost you on that line, Richard?
Yeah, just one comment I would like to make as part of this conversation that we're having in the moment. For me, it seems like everyone believes that it all started on October the 7th. And
when the attacks were, yeah.
Yeah, when the attacks. Well, it didn't. It started years and years beforehand, where and what we received with Hamas, and I'm not saying that what Hamas did is correct at all, But it's basically when you corner someone, they're going to go and react. And everyone's talking about, Hamas attacks started everything. No, it happened well before that. And also you start looking at the things that are happening in the West Bank. If you're looking at in the Lebanon area, etc., it's not just Gaza. I mean, what's happening in Gaza is unforgivable, as far as I'm concerned. These people, majority are displaced people. They've had their homes demolished, their olive groves burnt, destroyed, and they've been pushed into Gaza. And now, again, they're being displaced. So I think what we have to do is we have to sort of look at it in the light of the history behind what caused Hamas to do the thing.
Going live to the lines. Felix, sorry about that. We had a small problem. Are you still there?
Okay, I'll just go on to the point of the indictment. This is probably... first of all, read Netanyahu's statement on this. It's very forceful and very strong. This is probably something that is the worst thing that has happened in our lives ever since the actual Holocaust. The main problem is that the terrorist movement, which were so cruel against Jews in October 7, is placed alongside Netanyahu and alongside Israel. While Israel has got a record of clearing areas to try to minimize deaths of civilians, even though those civilians, many of them, are behind Hamas to a man and woman. We could see this when they we could see this very clearly on video when they brought the hostages back. That there were big crowds of Gazans were following the hostages in the back of jeeps, were beating them, spitting on them, etc. So this is not just one terrorist group, Hamas. This is a group that has got big support inside Palestine, and that's one of the things. The linking of Israel, a moral, very, very principled society, alongside the worst terrorists who showed the worst venom against Jews.
Felix, what's your
anti-Semitism? Sorry.
What's your thought, Felix, when you see Hamas saying the decision of the ICC equates the victim with the executioner?
Could you?
What's your thoughts? Sure. Yeah, when the
think a bit louder. I'm sorry, the line again is bad.
Okay, what is your thought when you see Hamas say something like this decision by the ICC equates Hamas as the victim with the executioner?
Right. I want to answer that indirectly because I've been doing some reading. Leon Trotsky, the great socialist revolutionary, and the position of the left today in the world. Leon Trotsky found himself in 1937 without a visa. He was being expelled from Norway. Britain had refused him a visa. America had refused him a visa. Germany, well, of course, but France had refused him a visa. Spain had refused him a visa, and so on. He had one chance of a visa on this earth, which was Mexico, which was because there had been a nationalist revolution in Mexico, and a man called Diego Rivera and his wife Frida were sympathetic to Trotsky and were in good fraternal relations with the president. So he got a visa.
Yeah.
Then when he came across in January 1937.
Okay.
He set up house in Diego Rivera's house, and coming down from America were a number of Jewish journalists. Now, note that Jews were aware of Trotsky, and they came down all the way to Mexico for an interview. He gave 4 interviews. They're printed on the internet.
Okay. And
in these 4 interviews about the situation in which he called for a Jewish state to be set up. Trotsky was actually a Zionist socialist. He was a Zionist.
Okay.
So he called for Jewish side. That's not the main point I'm making here.
Okay.
The main point I'm
very
making...
valid, very interesting. Very interesting
And
point.
the main point I'm making here, Rex, is that not once in these long hours of interviews did Trotsky once refer to the Palestinians. Not once. Why did he not do that? Because they didn't exist, Rex. They were not in existence. The Palestinians...
Of course they were. The Palestinians, they had a land. There was back in the 1890s, when Rothschild, etc., was financing all of this, a group of Jews went and had a look at the country. And I think, I'm paraphrasing it probably wrong, but they said, the bride is beautiful, but she's engaged to someone else. Because basically what they're saying is that there were Palestinians living in there. Now, you can't say that there weren't Palestinians there. Of course there were.
You're joking me. You're joking me. The Jews had a look at the country. The Jews had lived there 3,000 years ago.
So have Palestinians.
They have got a history. They've got an unbroken history in the country.
And so have the Palestinians.
I'm talking about the Palestinians, please. I'm talking about the Palestinians, which is a myth, which is a con job.
Well, I hate to disagree with you on this one, because...
It was developed... Let me finish. It was developed by Don't interrupt. It was developed by Yasser Arafat after the 1967 war. And the Arabs attacked Israel in 1948. The Nakba is a con job.
Right. Okay.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I agree.
Who else agrees with me on that? Check out the work of son of Hamas. That's the son of the leader of Hamas. He spells it all out, what a con job this Palestinian thing is. In 1967, they attacked again, and this
Felix,
was the so-called Nakba.
I've got lots of calls coming in. Okay, Felix, I've got lots of calls coming in. Thank you for
that's the truth. That's the truth, Giles. And you maybe are reluctant to face up to the truth, but I expect Rex to come in here and back me up. This is the truth.
Thank you very much for calling there, Felix. And we're everywhere from Mexican muralists to all points.
This is history, Giles.
I know what it is. Felix, I'm not mocking you. Thank you very much for your call. Thank you much for your call there. 952 78 4000 is the phone number. studio@tre.radio is the email. Just had a change. We're having a bit of... I'm having to juggle the phone lines because Rex is on the phone in Minorca. Rex, Felix called up for your thing. I wasn't please, Felix, don't think I was, as I say, kids would say, dissing you, but we're going live to the lines again. Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
It's Gil from Calpe.
Yes, Gil.
Well, when they talk about history, I have to interrupt because I think none of these speakers know the history better than me.
And you're modest.
And I'm modest.
Good.
Rothschild was there in 1882, not in 1890, and he founded 20 different towns. It wasn't just a visit to see things. Now, the Palestinians did not exist. I mean, the term Palestinian, as we use it today, was started in 1964 with the establishment of the Fatah. During the British Mandate, the word Palestinian made anybody, Jew or Arab, who lived in what was called the British Mandate of Palestine. Now, before the Zionist movement, yes, there were lots of other people in the country, but there was no nation. There was no particular one group. I mean, there was no such... First, the word Palestine wasn't known. It was a British invention. Yeah. But in the Arab world, there are no nations. There are tribes, there are ethnicities, there are religions, denominations, so on. But there are no nations. So, yes, when the idea came of... establishing a Jewish national homeland in what the British called Palestine. Yes, there were Arabs and there were Muslims, there were many groups, but there were all sorts of groups. I mean, for instance, there were the Bedouins who were both Muslims and Arabs, yeah, and then they don't consider themselves Palestinians, they never did, yeah, and they're a large group. You've got people like the Druze, who are Arab speakers. It's debatable whether they're Arabs, but they're certainly not Muslims, and they're the third largest community in Israel today. They're a very large number. And you've got the Circassians, who are Muslims, but are not Arabs, and the Samaritans, who are neither, and there are lots of different groups, representatives of of, all the churches. There were Armenians, Baha'is, Maronites, and so on.
The Knights Templar and the Knights Templar.
What?
In the days of there were all sorts of remainders of the Crusaders. I mean, Tel Aviv was built on what was previously a German Protestant colony.
Right.
There were lots of groups, but there wasn't anything common to these groups, and there was certainly no identity as Palestinian.
My point was that there were actually people living there.
There were people living there, but all sorts
It wasn't, but it was people who were living there who were either nomadic, the tribal, but there were people actually there. It wasn't a barren land with no population that could be just taken over. That's what I'm saying.
The population was very, very small even in those days. Look, Mark Twain visited the country in 1867. I wasn't there. I wasn't born at the time.
Right.
But he was there. He wrote a book about it, about his visit. The book is called Innocents Abroad. It's still available, still in print, and it costs £2.99, easy to get. And if you read the book, he says that the country was empty. He was surprised how empty it was.
So is Jordan. So is Syria. Lebanon used to be. Obviously, you have the
no. They were not. They were not as empty as what was Palestine. Those countries. I mean, Egypt was always very populated. Syria was populated. In what is Israel today, there were not that many people because there's nothing there. I mean, there are no natural resources, and there's still no natural resources till today. Nobody found any. The climate was terrible. It was full of swamps because after the Crusaders were kicked out by the Arabs neglected it, and that meant swamps everywhere. Swamps mean malaria. People couldn't live.
Well, neglected it, or they left it as be, and they carried on their farming chores that they normally did.
Right then, thank you for the call. I've got some more calls coming in. I'm trying to juggle this for the phone network. Gil, as always, thank you for the history lesson. As always, 952-78-4000 is the phone number. 952-78-4000 is the yes, Rex.
If you think that Israel is the size of Wales, that's it. It's the size of Wales.
Right then.
And what it has done in its short history. And as he said, no natural resources. But, of course, they converted the desert into orange groves and stuff like that.
Got some more stuff coming in here. Hi, Giles. It's incredible. This is from Tim. Hi, Giles. It's on the WhatsApp, which is +34 645 99 67 95. Hi, Giles. Hello, Giles. It's incredible that despite the ICJ and the ICC cases against Israel and its leaders and all the war crimes they are committing in Gaza, the media, including yours, are still denying these facts and complicit in covering up these crimes. The double standards that you apply is sickening. You were all cheering the ICC when Russia invaded Ukraine, but according to your twisted analysis, the other analyses are available. The ICC is suddenly unreliable and can't be trusted. More shocking is you're quoting a genocide apologist like Melanie Phillips twice in your show, who openly denied that famine is happening in Gaza on BBC's Question Time. Please read this on air. Kind regards, Tim. Tim, I have read it on air. To the lines we go. 952-78-4000. Morning caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Morning, Giles. It's Alf.
Morning, Alf.
Oh, my God. I thought we'd have one show. I was getting worried, Alf. I was panicking here.
No, Rex, I wouldn't let you down. That's why I've rung in. Never mind about what you're talking about. I just love to say hello, Rex. Hope you're enjoying your stay in Minorca.
Well, I am, Alf. Thank you so much.
Good. And Richard, I was really interested in what you were saying earlier on and your knowledge of Iran. I worked with a guy who escaped from Persia, and to escape they had to lie about his age. So as a union official, part of my job was to talk to the Home Office because this guy was coming up to 70 and he was still at work, and we was trying to get him off work and onto his pension. But his version, and this is probably the saddest part, we make our views of places based on the snippets that we get. And I worked with this guy. He absolutely hated the Ayatollah's regime coming in because obviously he was a Shah man. So, you build up your picture based on what people tell you. And to be honest, most of the British news for the last, 70 years have just talked about people having their hands cut off, women being stoned, you name it. And nobody in the UK, well, nobody, generalisation, most people in the UK just equate Arabs with Arabia. There is no such other country. There's no United Arab. That's all football has changed a lot of that perspective. But before that, it was just, that's the Arab world, and they're all the same, and they all do this. My point for ringing in though is as usual, we have Gil coming on, giving us the history lesson. We have Felix coming on, giving us and I don't recall ever, and I spent most of my life in politics. Trotsky wasn't a socialist. He was a Trotskyist. He was a Marxist. He was a whatever he was, but he was never a socialist. And a Zionist socialist, that's some stretch of the imagination. Having said that, what we always fail to do, you've just spent about 40 minutes talking about the history of Israel.
Alf,
but we never talk about... Hang on,
I'll drop one in. Socialist, a little point of socialism. Remember that kibbutz or kibbutzim in Israel is the most perfect form of socialism.
No, not true. It's completely not true. A kibbutz has no... No.
Socialism.
That's about socialist living. They have no politics. So don't quote what you don't know. But you're right. Kibbutz were the best place because everybody had a participation in what went on. Everybody was part of the decision making. Yeah, all of that. That's the way. That's
socialism.
Social. No, that's called social living. Socialism is a political position. There is no politics in a kibbutz. Believe me, because one kibbutz will have different politics to another kibbutz. They vote different ways in elections and stuff like that. They elect their own people to represent them. They have their own politics is separate from the kibbutz life. Kibbutz life. You can live a kibbutz. You don't have to be in Israel in a kibbutz. You can be in a caravan camp in Wales and still have the same process of everybody participating in the decision making. It doesn't make them socialists. That makes them part of social living, an understanding of togetherness and what they do. And I don't understand that of Trotsky, who was part of the regime that killed millions of Russians one way or the other. Anyway, the argument is that the history and where they came from isn't resolving the future. We are where we are in Israel, irrespective of these, these cults are always going to pop up. They're of no consequence. Who knows about the International Criminal Court? It's great when it's Ukraine. Yeah, they say these things, and people sort of take half notice. It's great for the powers that be to talk about it, but they mean nothing to ordinary Joe Bloggs on the street. What Joe Bloggs on the street wants to know is, when are they going to stop people being killed in Israel? When are we going to stop Putin from attacking the Ukraine? When are we going to stop what's happening in Georgia, where the people are being oppressed and all sorts of things? When are we going to start to do these things? And I tell you, yesterday, I don't know how many people did, I listened to the guy who's doing the report on the bad blood. What a speech, what a conversation, what a whole thing of explaining. But in essence, that's the first time ever I've heard somebody from a governmental background, because he was appointed by the government, who actually said, these people lied. These people covered up. This didn't have to happen. The only thing that he had to qualify after was the bit about the cover up, and it was a plot. What he was saying was it's institutional cover ups, which is exactly the same as what I was talking about weeks ago with the post office issue. Yeah. It's institutionalised. I worked for the post office. We saw what the Investigation Bureau did to people. We saw what management did, and they didn't. they didn't set up a little cabal of people in a room and say, oh, how are we going to cover this up? It was just natural to defend the organisation in whatever way they chose to do it. And that's what is so wrong. So I'll say again, it's all well and good having an argument about the history of Israel and how it was formed and where it came from and how many millions of years people lived there. It's great, wonderful. What are we going to do about stopping this nonsense that's going on now in Israel? How do we change the future?
Well,
that's not an easy question to answer, unfortunately.
Of course it isn't.
But certainly not
different to what you posed about Iran. What are we going to do about Iran? Because that's another issue, especially now.
With Iran, as far as I'm concerned, and again, it's just my opinion. If you drop the sanctions, you'll get a big change in what's going on over there. But
I wonder if the same would apply to Russia.
Well, Russia is a bit of a different kettle of fish, I imagine, because, again, to a certain extent, you're pushing someone to a corner, and Putin said, do not cross this line. And unlike certain American presidents, etc., when you do cross the line, Putin will react. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. Yeah. So, again, it's a little bit...
And China and India are keeping him in business.
Well, absolutely. And why not? Because, again, where are you going to look for an honest country that doesn't have vested interest in their machinations?
Oof. Yeah,
that doesn't exist.
Exactly. So you're going to go... I mean, if you're talking about... interesting enough, if you want to talk about Hamas and Netanyahu... I suggest people have a look at the link between Hamas and Netanyahu. Netanyahu didn't want to talk to the Palestinian Authority because he didn't like the leadership there. So he said, okay, well, we'll start talking to Hamas. So Netanyahu actually brought forward Hamas. Then the other thing you can start looking at is where's the financing coming from Hamas? That's another question that people could look into.
Follow
the money trail and see where that goes.
And they live in absolute comfort in Qatar. And they've got billions in the bank.
But as I say, you have to look at some of the detail, and maybe some of the details are a bit sketchy because you're talking out, from memory. But if you look at the links between Hamas and Netanyahu, that's actually quite interesting for people who are into what's going on in the Middle East.
But you also have to be careful about when you throw these things around. Yesterday, they gave a report on the television and said that Mr. and Mrs. Sunak last year made £30 million a day.
No.
A day. And this guy is supposed to be understanding how a young single parent with 2 kids has to go to a food bank every day, to feed her kids. And these people are on £30 million a day. Come on, it's all nonsense with this stuff. We elect people without a thought. We elect them for whatever reason. And you were right, Richard.
Well, we didn't elect Sunak.
Was not elected.
Richie Sunak was elected. He wasn't elected as the Prime Minister, but he was elected as a representative of people in the constituency where he lives. What is it, a 14-bedroom mansion or some nonsense? And you go, what possesses these people to put those in power? What possesses people in Britain to elect people who are paedophiles and whatever else?
Well, to go on that one, just one comment. If you look at United States and elections coming up, you've got to tell me that the 2 best candidates are someone called Biden and Trump.
Yeah, indeed.
God help America.
Well, on that one, I'm going to hit the quick break before we get into the last, literally 2 minutes before
And I'm going to love and leave you.
Thank you very much. You can just leave us, Alf. Good to have you with us, Alf, as always.
Nice to talk to you, Rex, and again.
And you, Alf, as always. Take care.
Cheers.
Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe with Giles Brown.
Doesn't time fly when you're going quickly, as the saying goes? Right, into the last 3 minutes or so of Viewpoint. Morning to Gary, who says the ICJ just proves the human condition. That's very gnomic, if not Gnostic. Into the last 2 minutes of this morning's show. Rex, yes, here we go. Yes.
Can you one of you answer me a question?
Yeah.
The panel on this this court are they representatives of every country that belongs? I can't remember the makeup of the judges. How does it work? I can't remember.
Are they taken from each country, or is it just
the ICC? I don't think it is. But I'm just going to quickly want to get this one quick before we go, just in case we run out of time. I'm loving this new guy on the panel. Seeing the world's problems by referring to modern history, always a winner in my book. Good luck, good work. That's from Dawn. So there you go. You come on the show, you get fan mail already. Morning, caller. You're talking about fan mail live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Yeah, morning. Very quick. Sharon.
Sharon, I was waiting for you.
Yeah, Sharon saying thank you to Giles for finding somebody with the other opinion.
Nothing to do with me.
Very much appreciate it.
It was nothing to do with me, just to let you know, but thank you, Martin.
Whoever found this guy, thank you to them, because it's refreshing on TRE to have somebody on this subject with just as much knowledge and a different point of view, and it's helped. I just used to hang up before Richard came onto the scene. I'll continue to listen in the future.
Well, thank you very much.
Sharon, you're not going to admit, Sharon, you hung up on me. Come on.
Oh, sorry about that. Have a lovely holiday, Rex, anyway. And,
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks very much indeed.
Bye,
Then, almost. Nobody would hang up on you, Rexy Poo. We know that.
No,
yes,
the woke finder general. Listen,
40 seconds, Rex.
I'm going to go and seek a pot of real homemade mahonnaise, and I shall tell you about it next time.
Well, in which case we shall wait with bated breath. Rex, thank you for joining us on your holiday. Amongst the tweeting of the birds, sounds very bucolic up there. Enjoy your mayonnaise, keep it away from the pizza, and thank you for joining us today. And Richard,
nice to be with Richard.
Yes,
and you,
indeed.
Giles, and goodbye, Spain.
Goodbye. We're still in Spain, don't wait until next time. Next later. And Richard, thank you so much for today. Really brought a breath of fresh air into Viewpoint this morning.
I really enjoyed it.
And hopefully we'll get you back on soon. This has been another live and lively one. Thank you very much for all the messages in. This show will be repeated at 7 o'clock, and Stephen Ritson is up next.
Expressed on Viewpoint by invited studio guests and callers do not constitute an opinion endorsed in any way by Talk Radio Europe.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this program, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit tre.radio.